What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are actually going to continue our coverage over current X-Men comics, but takes place after Inferno. Now, the reason why I say after Inferno, because that was the point where Jonathan Hickman left. And let me explain. So back in 2018, Jonathan Hickman came back to Marvel and said, give me the X-Men. I am going to make the X-Men worth something once again. And honestly, he did. From 2018 to 2021, him and other writers did great work when it came to the X-Men books. There were some weak ones, but there were a lot of strong ones. Now, with that being said, though, after 3 or 4 years of working on the X-Men books, in 2021, he launched Inferno. Inferno was a 4-part series to wrap up everything that he was working on when it came to X-Men comics. But once Inferno was done, he left X-Men completely, leaving the rest of the writers to take over and to hopefully do good jobs when it comes to X-Men comics. Now, with that being said, you have fans asking Marvel, hey, what's next? Like, what are you going to do next with the X-Men? And so Marvel gave us X of Lies and Deaths of Wolverine. Now, this is kind of like House of X and Power of X. And what I mean by that, House of X and Power of X were 2 different series, but they were coming out at the same time. But when you combine them together, you get a complete story. And so right now, when it comes to X of Lies and Deaths of Wolverine, it's 2 different series, but at the same time, they go together to tell one complete story. Now, when it comes to this story, you do have one side focusing on Wolverine and the other side focusing on Moira Taggart. And this is where I say this is really more of a sequel to Inferno. Not really a sequel, but telling us, hey, this is what's coming next for X-Men comics. But on top of that, let us tell you what's happening right now with Moira Taggart. Because if you saw my Inferno video, she was able to escape and get away from Mystique and Destiny, 2 characters who wanted to kill her. Because again, she was turned to a human. But because she was turned into a human, that law came in effect, saying that mutants cannot kill humans. And so they had to let her go. And the question is now, what's going to happen to her? What is she going to do now that she's no longer wanted by the mutant nation? Because she's no longer a mutant. And of course, it could be bad things. And so that is why we have this sequel series. Yes, it does focus on Wolverine, but at the same time, it's mainly about Moira Taggart. And so how we're going to do this when it comes to this 10-part series is that we're going to use each video as a way to cover one part of each story, meaning that 2 books will be in each video. So for this video, you'll have X of Lies of Wolverine #1 and X of Deaths of Wolverine #1 for this video alone. Now, with that being said, we're going to cover X of Lies of Wolverine #1 first, where we actually do pick up with Wolverine. Now, when we do, it's kind of like that classic Wolverine scene where you have him right now on the cliff. He's out there just looking at the sunset or the sunrise, either one of the 2. And right now, he's thinking about time and how he's been around for a very long time. But at the same time, though, he feels like time might close on him, meaning that his end could be very soon. But either way, he feels like time is some kind of weird way to measure life. Either way, that is the moment you have Charles Xavier arrive. Now, when Charles arrives, he says, hey, Logan, it's time. And then we're going to find out that apparently Wolverine is going to go on some kind of special mission. But then you had the story just change settings on us. And what I mean by that, we actually do jump back in time. Now, when we do, at first, we have no idea who these people are that we are seeing. But the house they're in right now, you can tell right off the bat that this house is the X Mansion, which means that it was owned by Charles Xavier, which could technically mean that we're right now watching his parents. And right now, it's his mom giving birth to him. And so right now, it's technically just the dad outside the room waiting for his son to be born. But at the same time, in the room, the mom is trying to give birth to their child. Now, when you do have the father of Charles Xavier walk outside the X Mansion, I know it's not called X Mansion right now, but for me it is. Either way, when he does walk outside the mansion, that is the moment he is attacked by some random person. Now, he is saved by Wolverine, and this is where things get a tad bit crazy, because now you're probably wondering, wait a second, how in the world did Wolverine know Charles Xavier's father? And who is he right now trying to protect the father from? And that is the moment we come to find out the gardener for Charles Xavier's parents has been taken over, it seems like, by Omega Red. And that right there brings up more questions, because now you're probably wondering, wait a second, did Omega Red and Wolverine, were they in the past? And did they know Charles Xavier's parents? What in the world is going on right now? And why is Omega Red in the body of this gardener trying to kill off the father of Charles Xavier? Now, that is the moment where we actually do pick up with Omega Red, but we do pick up with him right now in a different time. And of course, the time we do see him is more closer to the present day, meaning that right now it's Omega Red on COPPA, not in the past with Wolverine trying to kill off Charles Xavier's father. Either way, we have to remember that when it comes to Omega Red, he is technically an old classic villain for Wolverine. Now, we have been seeing a lot of Omega Red in the latest Wolverine series because he was actually working with Dracula. Now, the reason why he was working for Dracula or with Dracula is because Dracula had the carbonadium synchronizer, and that what keeps Omega Red alive. He needs that. And so once he was able to help out Dracula, of course, Dracula gave Omega Red what he needed. But then you had Omega Red actually double cross Dracula by helping out X-Force to take down Dracula and his operations. Now, with that being said, at first, they did need some hardcore evidence on Dracula. And so what they did was they killed off Omega Red. X-Force did. They killed him off, but when they brought him back to life, they did give him a carbonadium synchronizer, but of course, it had some kind of recording device inside there. And so with that device, they were able to listen in on conversations between Dracula and Omega Red, which of course gave X-Force the ability to do things to Dracula. Now, with all that being said, at first, Omega Red had no idea that he died and he was brought back to life to be used by X-Force as a way to be a spy. He had no idea about that. Because remember, when you definitely die when it comes to X-Men comics at this point, when you die, the memories of your past life, it stops right before you die. Meaning that once you're brought back to life, you do not remember how you died. And so he had no idea he died. And so right now, he's technically breaking into the 5 computer system. And when he does, he comes to find out, oh my God, they killed me and technically used me as a way to spy on Dracula. And so this is him right now getting very upset in the idea that he was used as a spy. But then we do jump back in time. Now, when we do, we actually pick up with Wolverine right now, still fighting against Omega Red. Now, this is where we kind of get a tad bit of information about what's happening right now. And what we actually learn is that somehow Omega Red is able to send his mind back in the past. But when he does that, he does take over people's bodies. And when he does that, he's able to use them as a way to apparently kill off a target. And right now, his current target is to make sure that Charles Xavier never comes to life. He is not born. He is dead before he's able to grow up and make the X-Men. And the reason why Omega is doing this is to prove 2 things. One, that Charles is not needed for the world to succeed. But on top of that, to become the greatest enemy of all time for Wolverine. And so right now, it's just Omega Red trying to kill off young Charles Xavier. Now, it also seems like Wolverine, his mind was also sent back in the past to defend Charles Xavier from Omega Red. Now, with all that information right there, right when it seems like Wolverine is about to kill off the gardener, that is when he turns back to normal, meaning that Omega Red is no longer possessing that body. He found a new body. And of course, the body he found is inside the house, which means that he's now one step closer into actually killing off Charles Xavier. And we come to find out he did possess another body, except this time it's the butler who's right next to Charles Xavier's father. And right now he's trying to kill off the father so that there's no one else standing in his way when it comes to killing off young Charles Xavier. Except the father to Charles was able to get his gun out and blast the butler. So unfortunately, the butler is dead. But luckily, they did buy more time for Charles to actually be born. Now, that is the moment where we actually do pick up with Benjamin Percy right now trying to set the record straight when it comes to a particular character. And that character is Cassandra Nova. And let me explain. So when it comes to Cassandra Nova, she is actually the twin sister to Charles Xavier. And we first met her back in the early 2000s in New X-Men. Now, you did have Marvel explain why in the world we did not see her in the 60s, 70s, 80s, nor 90s. And the reason why, because back then, Charles Xavier killed her when they were babies and they were still in the womb, because apparently in the womb he realized that she was actually evil, and back then he had his powers, and so he used his powers on her to kill her off. Now, when the doctors declared that she was stillborn, the family had to move on. But in reality, she did not die. She was able to make a new body for herself somewhere else. It got crazy and weird. Either way, over the years, you have Marvel say, writers of Marvel say, yes, she is a twin sister to Charles Xavier. But then you had other writers come in and say, no, she is not the twin sister to Charles Xavier. It went back and forth for years on years. But right now, you have Benjamin Percy saying, no, she is the twin sister to Charles Xavier. I am saying that right now, the record has been straight. And so that is the moment where we do see the nurse declare that Cassandra is stillborn. So technically right now, the timeline is that she was born, she was declared as stillborn, but we know that she is not actually dead. But then you have the mom giving birth to Charles Xavier. Now, with all that information, that is also the moment where you have the dad run into the room with a gun in his hand, because right now he's freaking out and wants to make sure that his wife and his kid is okay. Now, he does look around the room and make sure nothing else is about to happen, but unfortunately, he has no idea the nurse has now been possessed by Omega Red. And right now, the nurse is trying to kill off the mother of Charles Xavier because she has not given birth to Charles yet, meaning that if she dies, he also dies as well. Now, you do have the dad turn around and try to stop Omega Red as a nurse, but of course he failed. But luckily for him, Wolverine comes into the room. But then we have to jump back to what seems to be the present day. And this is where we get confirmation that yes, when it comes to Wolverine's mind, his mind was sent back in time to hopefully battle against Omega Red. And the reason why I say that, because you have Wolverine right now meeting up with Jean Grey and Charles Xavier. Now, I really do like this moment right here because it's Wolverine saying that he looks at Charles as a father, even though he is older than Charles Xavier. It's just that Charles seems more experienced in life, even though he's younger than Wolverine. And then he sees Jean Grey. And this is where we get reminded that when it comes to Jean Grey and Wolverine, their love is there forever. Even though she's in love with Cyclops as well, she's also in love with Wolverine. And so that trend right there is going to continue. Either way, we do see Charles and Jean put Cerebro on Wolverine's head. And it seems like they technically sent his mind back in time to one of his bodies in the past to use that body as a way to fight against Omega Red to protect Charles from Omega Red. But then we jump back in time. Now, when we do jump back in time, that is the moment where we actually pick up with Wolverine still fighting against Omega Red. But while the two characters are fighting against one another, well, when it comes to Charles' mother, she's still giving birth to Charles Xavier. And so while they fight, she's over there giving birth to her son. Now, this is where you have something very important said, and it's by Omega Red. Because right now, Omega Red is actually losing the battle against Wolverine. But the thing is, Wolverine does not want to kill off Omega Red because right now Omega Red is in the body of the nurse, meaning that if Wolverine stabs the nurse, he's technically killing the nurse, but not really killing off Omega Red. Either way, you have Omega Red say, you have gotten soft over the years. And that's true because, guys, when it came to Wolverine in the old 70s and 80s comics, he was more of a jerk, but also very brutal. His earlier comics were very brutal, but over the years, he had become a nicer person, less brutal. And right now, it's Omega Red saying, yeah, man, you're not who you used to be. You're now the scaredy cat, not this actual true killer. And I miss the true killer self. Now, while the two characters were fighting against one another, of course, Charles' mother gave birth to her son, but she has a gun in her hand and she plans to shoot both Wolverine and Omega Red to protect her son. But then we jump back over to the present day, except this time we actually pick up with Omega Red. And technically, it's still not the present day. Actually, it's still in the past. Either way, right now, we see Omega Red go to Russia. Now remember, he's from Russia, but when it comes to Russia, they already said no mutants are allowed to come to Russia at all. Literally, if you come here, you'll be shot on sight or being forced to work for the Russian government. And so when he walks through a Krakoan gate, they freak out. They're wondering, okay, why are you here? What do you want? Go away right now. Instead, you have Omega Red say no. He does take down a few guards, but that is the moment he's confronted by someone else. And that person is Mikhail, the brother to Colossus. And remember, Mikhail right now in X-Men comics is trying to get rid of COPPA because he believes that when it comes to the mutant race, they should not be serving themselves. They should be serving their countries. For example, Russian mutants should be serving Russia. America mutants should be serving America. And so he's trying to get rid of the mutant nation. Either way, right now, he has an evil group known as Xeno and been using that group for his evil plan. Either way, right now, he is confronted, or actually he confronts Omega Red. And it seems like these two characters are now going to work together. But getting back to the past where we actually pick up with Wolverine right now, still fighting against Omega Red, but technically they got a gun right now pointed to them, you do have the fight actually continue where you do have Wolverine being able to protect the father, Charles, and Charles' mother as well from Omega Red. But while the fight does go on, you do have Wolverine being able to actually trick Omega Red to come after him. But the very last second, you have Wolverine get out of the way and Omega Red goes out the window. And of course, he dies because he was in the nurse's body and her body had no actual powers. And so she's dead. And so with that, Omega Red now has no one else in the room to actually possess to kill off Charles Xavier. Well, actually he does, the father and mother, but I guess those two cannot work. Either way right now, it's Wolverine realizing that he won. But then that is the moment he goes to a different part in time. Now, the next moment he has to live through is actually when he was on Team X. And when it comes to Team X, remember, it was this Black Ops team that worked for Weapon Plus. Either way, right now, he's on Team X, which means that this is the next step in his mission to protect Charles Xavier. Something happens at this moment where Wolverine and Charles do cross paths, because you have Jean Grey say, your target is 25 miles away. And so that means you better go stop Omega Red because he's going to do something here in this point in time. And so now we jump over to X of Deaths. Now, when we actually jump over to X of Deaths, it does focus on Moira McTaggart, but at the same time, it still focuses on Wolverine. And you see what I mean as we go through this book. Either way, right now, we do pick up literally moments after Inferno, meaning that right now we pick up with Moira McTaggart on the run. Because remember, at the end of Inferno, Cypher was able to save her her from Mystique and Destiny by saying, hey, listen, she is a human, and by one of our laws, we're not allowed to kill humans at all, which means that she is able to go ahead and leave. And so right now, Mystique had no choice but to let her leave. Now, when it comes to Moira McTaggart, even though she was able to leave the island, she knows Mystique is still going to hunt her down. For today, maybe not, because right now she is going to follow that law. But down the road, oh no, Mystique is going to break that law and try to kill off Moira McTaggart. And so right now, she is on the run. She is trying to add some kind of distance between her and Mystique. Now, here's the thing though, Mystique is a great hunter, meaning that if you're hiding from Mystique, you better do one heck of a job from getting away from Mystique or hiding from Mystique, because she'll be able to find you just like that. Now, this is also Moira realizing that Mystique knows that when it comes to her death, Moira's death, no one is truly going to care anymore, because now she's a human, but also she can no longer change the future of the mutant race or reset this timeline. And so it's her right now just trying to get away. Now, she does go back home, of course, where she was born at, where she was raised at. Now, when she gets back there, that is the moment she realized that something is wrong with her. Something is different with her. And that is the moment she begins to realize that she does not feel good at all. And so she does fall to the ground. And when she does, she begins to cough. And when she does cough, of course, she coughs up some blood, which means that right now, Moira McTaggart is actually dying. Now, this could be a side effect because she was turned into a human. She lost her X gene. Either way, right now, Moira McTaggart is actually dying. But then we jump over to Black Tom. Now remember, Black Tom has the ability to actually control wood. Now with that being said, right now you have Black Tom at the bar. Now, being of course at the bar, he's drinking, but then his drink begins to shake. Now at first, when he tells folks that, they believe that he's gone crazy or he's just drunk, because right now the ground is not shaking. But then he realized the ground is shaking. His drink is shaking. Something big is happening. And that is the moment we kind of find out that right now, the island, COPPA, is changing. Well, a particular area of the island is actually changing to the point where you actually have a huge crater or valley open up. But in the middle of that crater or valley, that is the moment you have Black Tom realize, oh my gosh, there is some kind of egg here. What in the world is going on? Why does egg just pop out of COPPA for? What's happening? But then we have to jump back over to Moira McTaggart. Now, when we do, this is right now Moira McTaggart kind of going to the doctor. Not kind of, she is. She's going to the doctor to get checked up on, because right now she realized something is wrong with her. And so that is the moment you actually have one of the doctors tell her, oh, hey, by the way, you have cancer. Like literally, you're dying. It's stage 4. You're going to die soon. I'm sorry. Now, of course, this is more trying to figure out how in the world can she fight this? How can she actually find a way to give herself more time? Because right now it seems like she has a mission. Now, we can say right off the bat, her mission is to get rid of the mutant race. She's trying to get that cure. But for right now, technically, we have no idea. Either way, she's asking for more time and she's trying to find a way. Now, the doctor is actually called out of her room by another nurse. Now, when it comes to this nurse, though, it's not really a nurse. It's Mystique pretending to be a nurse because Mystique has shape-shifting abilities. And so this is Mystique saying, hey, listen, I gave you a couple days to get away, and that is it. But I'm here to technically kill you off, like I said I would, because I need to make sure there is no way you are able to actually reset the timeline. And so right now, you have Mystique trying to kill off Moira McTaggart. Now, while they're fighting against one another, that is the moment you have Valkyrie appear. out of nowhere. Like literally, a Thor character comes in at the very last minute to save Mora from Mystique. And you're wondering why? Same thing. I am too right now. And so you have Valkyrie say, get out of here. You wanted more time? Well, guess what? I'm giving you more time. Get the heck out of here. I'll deal with Mystique. And so Mora is able to escape by jumping out the window. But getting back over to Black Tom, that is the moment we come to find out that what Black Tom found was some kind of egg. But then the egg opens up. And when it does open up, well, that is the moment Black Tom is killed off. And Black Tom is actually killed off what seems to be by Wolverine. But here comes the problem though. Wolverine is right now in the past, or his mind is, which means that how in the world do we have another Wolverine in the picture right now while the old one is gone? What in the world is happening here? And on top of that, why in the world did this other Wolverine kill Black Tom off for? But getting back over to Mora McTaggart, this is where things get a tad bit more interesting for her storyline. Because right now she's on the run and she realized that she does need to change her appearance as a way to keep away from Mystique. And so that is what she is going to do. Except while she's doing that though, of course she's being watched. She's being watched by X-Desk. And remember, X-Desk is part of the CIA, technically a branch that keeps eyes on mutants. They keep intel on every single mutant around the world. And we have seen them a few times. And matter of fact, most recently in a Wolverine story in our coverage over X-Men comics. And so right now, this is CIA X-Desk saying, okay, we need to bring her in. And the reason why to bring her in, because they have no idea that she was a mutant. In reality, they believe that she is a human. But because the record said that she was close to the mutants like Charles Xavier, she may contain a lot of intel. Intel that they could use to help them keep more information on the X-Men and other mutants across the world. And so that is the moment where we actually pick up in Charles Xavier's No Place room. Now, this No Place room was given to him by Cypher as a way to have a room that is technically connected to COPPA, but COPPA cannot look into that room. Either way, it was just a hidden room that he gave over to Mora so that Magneto, Charles, and Mora can have a conversation in private. Now, with that being said, we do see someone right now walking into that room. And when they do, that is the moment they sniff something that belongs to Mora as a way to get her scent. And of course, it's this other Wolverine that we have no idea about. Like, how in the world is there another Wolverine? And so then we jump back over to Mora McTaggart. Now, when we do, we actually see her right now still trying to hide from Mystique. But at the same time, she realized that now the CIA are after her as well. And so this is her trying to stay hidden from both groups. Now, unfortunately for her, she does get caught by the CIA, but she is able to actually escape because one, she's a good fighter, and two, she knows how to get away when she's in trouble. Either way right now, she's able to take down these guys, find a bike. I almost said a boat. I have no idea why. But she does find a bike as a way to get away from this situation. But now this is more realizing, okay, I have Mystique following me, but I also have now the CIA after me as well. Things just got even more complicated for my life. But getting back over to, well, really, we jump over to Jean Grey and Charles Xavier for the first time in a long time in the story. But you right now have Jean Grey realize something is off. Something is different. And that is the moment she realized that with her abilities, she actually detects Wolverine. But she knows that right now is impossible because right now her Wolverine is in Cerebro and right now trying to protect Charles in the past. But then she now realized there is another Wolverine. How in the world is that possible? And so she does try to talk to this other Wolverine. And you have this other Wolverine tell her, I'm nobody. You don't know me. Leave me alone. I have a mission to do. And that technically leaves us on the cliffhanger for the next video. So with that being said, guys, I do hope you enjoyed today's comic book video. And if you did, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.